During one gloomy day inside what looked like an abandoned hospital deep in the woods, a boy named Rei Tosaka was seen going through a stack of old medical records. The moment he understood what he was reading, his face twisted in shock. Unable to accept it, he threw the file against the wall. Overwhelmed by the weight of his emotions, Rei slowly began to break down. Suddenly, he froze. Footsteps echoed through the hallway, growing closer with every second. A deep sense of fear crawled up his spine. Unnatural events had been surrounding him for a long time now. And at this very moment, he knew he was being hunted by the monster he had been running from. As the door creaked open, Rei had already accepted his fate. He didn't even try to fight back. A dark, floating entity drifted toward him. Its face was blurred, but it clearly had the shape of a long-haired girl. With a defeated expression, Rei weakly asked the creature to take it easy on him, believing it would make him happy if she did. But the creature showed no mercy. Without hesitation, she tore into his flesh using her long, sharp fangs. In an instant, her form twisted and morphed into something far worse, a horrifying spider-like creature. At that point, Rei knew there was no escape. This monster, however, was not unfamiliar to him. In fact, he clearly remembered the first time he encountered it. If his memory served him right, it all began during the summer of his first year in the village after he left his hometown. One sunny morning in his dorm, Rei was suddenly awakened by the loud noise of his air conditioner. He tried to fix it only to realize it was clogged by a massive spider living inside. Since it was still early, he decided to freshen up and prepare for school first. While getting ready, his thoughts drifted back to the spider. Given its size, he knew it couldn't have come from the air conditioner. Still, with school on his mind and no time to deal with it, he pushed the thought aside. As he turned on the news to catch updates about the recent disappearance of Professor Seigo Kusunoki from Washo University, he noticed something strange. The side of his bed was now completely covered in spiderwebs. That didn't make any sense. He was sure they weren't there the night before. The idea that such a massive spider could create all of this in just a few hours while he slept was both fascinating and terrifying. With no time left, Rei rushed out to school, even jokingly saying goodbye to his new spider pet. At first, he believed the spider would eventually leave on its own. But it didn't. The spiderwebs kept appearing every single day. Slowly, worry and curiosity began to grow inside him. What kind of spider was this anyway? Determined to find answers, he searched through books and articles in the university library, but found nothing. In the end, Rei gave up. After all, humans tend to adapt to things they experience repeatedly. Still, he wondered how long that would last. Days passed, and Rei gradually got used to the spider sharing his apartment. One evening, after returning from work, he checked the news again. Another disappearance had occurred in Tokyo. According to the headline, the missing schoolgirl lived dangerously close to his dorm. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted when his alarm rang. He had plans today, a date with his girlfriend. Rei had been dating Kiyoko for a month now, and he felt it was finally time to deepen their relationship. As he packed his bag, something stopped him. Spiderwebs clung to the doorway. Thinking it was just an accident, he ignored it and left. He didn't realize that something in the shadows was watching him, angry. After a short drive, Rei and Kiyoko arrived at the aquarium. Seeing her smile made him genuinely happy. Kiyoko, with her innocent charm, was amazed by everything around her. She even said it felt like they were at the bottom of the ocean since this place had always been one of her dreams to visit. The joy in her sparkling eyes was impossible to miss. Watching her, Rei couldn't help but wonder why someone like her was even dating him. To be honest, he still couldn't believe it himself. Lost in thought, he barely noticed Kiyoko speaking to him. She told him she was worried about him, and reminded him that he once mentioned wanting to talk about something important. Still, knowing how rare their dates were due to their busy schedules, she encouraged him to forget his worries for now and just enjoy the day. And he did. By nightfall, after dropping Kiyoko off at the station, Rei headed back home. His heart felt light replaying the moments they had shared. But the moment he reached his apartment, his happiness vanished. The front door was completely covered in spiderweb. He nearly tripped over them. And just like that, His good mood disappeared in an instant. However, it seemed that the worst was still yet to come. At first, Ray thought the spiderwebs were only covering his front door. But as soon as he stepped inside his apartment, he froze. The entire place was completely covered in webs. It had never been this bad before. What made it even more disturbing was the fact that this amount of webbing should have been impossible to create in just a few hours. As he looked closer, he noticed something else. These webs were different. They felt wrong. It was almost as if someone had lashed out in anger, leaving chaos behind. The webs gave off that exact feeling. Then something even more terrifying caught his eye. Human hair. Ray stared at it in disbelief. This was no small matter, and his thoughts began to spiral. He tried to convince himself that everything was fine, that he was just overthinking things. But no matter how much he tried to lie to himself, he knew the truth. He was scared. None of this made sense. He hadn't seen any signs of an intruder. And since the windows were still tightly closed, he was certain of one thing. The spider was still inside the apartment. What troubled him the most was the hair. Still, being alone in such a large space, he tried one last time to calm himself. Maybe the webs were just dirty. Maybe it only looked like hair. After finally settling his nerves, Ray decided to go to sleep, hoping that everything would be normal the next day. But that hope didn't last long. Just as he was about to close his eyes, a cold breeze passed through his bedroom. Suddenly, a black silhouette shaped like a girl appeared right in front of him. Terrified, Ray shouted, "Who's there?" A girl with long, silky black hair stepped forward. Her beauty was undeniable, and Ray found himself staring in shock. Her red shining eyes captivated him in a way he had never felt before. Before he even realized it, the girl bent over him, her movements slow and deliberate. Without warning, she kissed his neck and licked it with her wet tongue. Ray was completely stunned, struggling to understand what was happening. Seeing that she was wearing a school uniform, he tried to stay calm, thinking she might be troubled or lost. That was his mistake. Suddenly, she bit him with her fangs. The pain was sharp, and he realized she was sucking his blood. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then he felt something else, something entering his body. As he tried to push her away, she suddenly kissed him on the lips. His mind screamed to move, but his body refused to listen. It was as if he no longer had control over himself. His body began to move on its own. The girl seemed to enjoy it. Ray tried to fight back. He didn't want this. If he gave in, it felt like he was betraying Kiyoko and everything they shared. For what felt like an endless minute, the two remained entangled. Then, suddenly, control returned to him. He immediately tried to escape, but before he could even reach the door, the girl stopped him with her webs. Once again, his body froze. She refused to let him go. The web tightened, and she pulled him back. They began kissing again, and this time, he had no strength left to resist. What hurt the most was realizing that part of him was starting to enjoy it. He found her beautiful, charismatic, but deep down he knew the truth. This was not a human. This was a monster. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the body of a second-year student named Maibara Yuko from Ashinosaka City, who had been missing for some time, was finally discovered. According to the news, something was horribly wrong with the corpse. All of her organs, including her brain, had been removed. The police immediately launched an investigation into this brutal murder. But the question remained, would they ever uncover the truth behind her death? For Ray, however, that night marked the moment when the charming monster trapped him completely. Unable to move, unable to fight, and unable to save himself. The next day at the police department, Officer Dakiono met with Yoshiaki Matsui, the department's lead forensic specialist, to review the autopsy results. To his disappointment, even Matsui couldn't reach a conclusion. It was the first time he had ever seen a body in such an unexplainable condition. No matter how much effort the investigators put in, they still couldn't determine the original appearance of the missing girl. Most of her internal organs were gone. Parts of her bones had been cut away. Only one arm and one leg remained with just a thin strip of skin still connecting them to the body. Even imagining it was enough to send chills down anyone's spine. Maibara Yuko's corpse looked like the leftovers of a wild animal's meal. According to Daisuke Ono's theory, the murderer may have devoured most of the body to prevent the murder weapon from being identified. By destroying the evidence, the killer could erase any clear clues. While this theory sounded reasonable, there was no way to prove it. At this stage, nothing could be confirmed. Neither the crime scene nor the corpse showed any traces that matched an animal. Even if something had eaten her and erased its tracks, there was no solid evidence to support that claim. Yoshiaki Matsui believed the cause of death was most likely extreme blood loss. A large blood stain had been found in the alley where the crime occurred. Because of this, there were still many unanswered questions surrounding Miyara's death. To be certain, Matsui wanted to continue investigating. To be honest, he personally believed this case might involve something far beyond human understanding, possibly a ghost, or even a monster. However, Officer Ono couldn't bring himself to believe in such ideas. Refusing to entertain superstition, he collected the autopsy report and prepared to leave. Before doing so, he reminded Matsui to contact him immediately if he discovered anything new. Once Ono left, Matsui was alone. He was convinced that what happened to Mayara was not the work of a human being. As he stared up at the ceiling of his office, something caught his eye, a spider crawling above him. He suddenly realized that he had been seeing spiders everywhere that day. Feeling exhausted, Yoshiaki Matsui decided to call it a night. He packed up his things and walked toward the door, ready to go home and rest. But something horrifying awaited him. The moment he opened the door, he was met with thousands of spiders swarming on the other side. In a split second, Matsui was overwhelmed and killed without even getting the chance to fight back. Meanwhile, back at Rei's apartment, the sun was already shining, yet Rei was still trapped with the girl who had been using his body all night. No matter how hard he tried to move, his body remained pinned down. His blood was being drained, and once again, he felt something entering his body. This routine had been repeating for several days. At this point, Rei had almost accepted his fate. When the girl finally stopped, he tried to talk to her. He asked why she was doing this to him, hoping to understand her intentions. But no matter what he said, she showed no sign of understanding his words. Failing to communicate was bad enough, but Rei had a bigger problem. While the girl clung tightly to his side, he turned on the TV to watch the news. He already knew what was coming. On the second morning after meeting her, he had seen the report. His heart nearly stopped in fear. The girl holding him had the exact same face as Maibara Yuko, the victim shown on the screen. But that was impossible. According to the news, Maibara was already dead. So, how could she be here with him? That question consumed his mind. He tried to think of explanations. Maybe she was Maibara's sister. Maybe a classmate who looked exactly like her. But none of it made sense. If that were true, she wouldn't be standing here so casually. The uniform was the same. The face was identical. At that moment, Rei finally understood. Something was terribly wrong. Before he could think any further, it started again. His body stopped obeying him as the girl climbed on top of him once more. This time, however, he noticed something new. For just a brief moment, he saw the image of a giant spider. Rei's body no longer belonged to him. No matter how hard he tried to resist, he couldn't move. He was pinned to the bed, frozen, unable to fight back even a little. The girl began her nightly ritual once again. Meanwhile, on the newscaster announced that Yoshiaki Matsui, a 38-year-old man who worked in the police prefecture, had been missing for 20 days. Of course, the truth behind his disappearance was already known. Back at the apartment, Rei showed no signs of resistance anymore. No matter what he tried, he couldn't escape the woman. Every attempt failed. His body would be controlled by an unknown force and dragged back to the room. He even tried locking her out. But no matter what he did, she always reappeared in the same place the very next moment. Calling for help was useless. Whenever the police arrived, she vanished without a trace. Because of this, Rei found himself living every day with the monster, who smiled as she held him close. At this point, the only thing on Rei's mind was the truth. Why was she doing this to him? Was she drawing energy from his blood? Was that the reason she kissed him so deeply, paralyzing his body every time? Her kisses only grew more intense with each passing day. Then during one of those moments, Rei's phone rang. It was Kiyoko. He immediately answered the call. From her voice alone, it was clear that she was angry and worried. She scolded him for not going to school for weeks and for ignoring her messages. Rei tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't stop. His friends were worried, too, and Kiyoko's voice trembled as she spoke. He told her he was fine. He made excuses, saying he hadn't been feeling well and didn't want to worry anyone. But Kiyoko snapped back, telling him that ignoring her only made things worse. Hearing her upset because of him hurt Rei deeply. Still, he had no choice. There was no way he could explain what was really happening. Then came the worst possible news. Kiyoko said she was nearby and wanted to visit him. She even offered to stay the night and take care of him. Her kindness only made things more dangerous. In the back of his mind, Rei knew one thing clearly. If Kiyoko came inside that apartment, their relationship would be over. As he desperately tried to think of another excuse, the monster girl smiled quietly. It was as if she believed this was the perfect chance to tear them apart. Before he could stop it, it was already too late. Kiyoko was standing right in front of his door. She entered the apartment without hesitation and offered to make him lunch. Since she planned to stay the night, she said she needed to change in his room. Rei immediately tried to stop her. This only made Kiyoko suspicious. She asked him if there was something inside the room that she wasn't supposed to see. After a moment of silence, she teased him with a flustered smile, joking that maybe he had been looking at something inappropriate. She reassured him, saying she understood these things as a woman. But as his girlfriend, she still wanted to know how he was feeling. Before he could react, Kiyoko opened the door and rushed inside. Rei panicked, warning her that it was dangerous, but there was nothing there. Later, while Kiyoko was taking a bath, Rei stood frozen, wondering where the girl had gone. No silhouette, no presence. He realized something. Then the monster hid herself whenever someone else was around. Trying not to worry Kiyoko, he forced himself to calm down. After a while, Kiyoko finished bathing. When she returned, she found Rei sitting quietly reading a journal about the recent serial murder cases in their area. Kiyoko then shared some information she had heard about the case. According to rumors, the person who was captured was actually innocent. Because of that, fear had spread through the town once again. People believed it was no longer safe to walk alone at night. Kiyoko also mentioned something else that disturbed her. Based on what she knew, one of the victims was a high school student. In that case, all of the victim's internal organs had been removed. This shocked Rei. He couldn't understand how that was even possible. According to the reports, the body had already been eaten. Nothing about it made sense. Trying to lighten the mood, Kiyoko suggested that they should go to bed. However, what happened next was something Rei never expected. As they lay together, the warmth of Kiyoko's body filled the bed. Despite her innocent appearance, she was clearly excited to be lying beside him. She slowly pressed closer while Rei grew more and more nervous. For normal couples, this would have been natural, but because of the monster, Rei had to stay alert. When Kiyoko tried to take the first step and move things further, Rei stopped her. Not because he didn't want to, but because he knew what would happen if he let it continue. Just then, he sensed it. The monster was about to appear. Fearing for Kiyoko's life, Rei suddenly hugged her tightly and shouted, begging the monster to stop. Kiyoko, not understanding what was happening, believed his reaction was meant for her. Because of his desperate action, the monster disappeared. But the damage had already been done. Kiyoko was deeply hurt and embarrassed. She quietly packed her things and prepared to leave. Rei tried to explain, but she couldn't even bring herself to look at him. She told him she needed time to clear her thoughts. Then she admitted that maybe he was right, that it was too early for them to go that far. She said she had simply rushed things. Rei tried again to explain himself, but Kiyoko was too embarrassed to continue the conversation. Still, before leaving, she reassured him. She told him not to feel guilty, and said she hoped he wouldn't start hating her. She confessed that she loved him. Ray returned her feelings, hugging her tightly as she stepped out the door. Even though the day didn't end the way either of them wanted, Kiyoko forced a smile and walked away. As soon as she left, Ray was alone again in his dark apartment filled with guilt. Before he could even process what had happened, the monster girl appeared once more. As expected, she did to him what he had refused to do with Kiyoko. On her way home, Kiyoko felt relieved knowing that Ray didn't hate her. Still, after what happened, she decided to be more careful with her actions from now on. Late at night, as she walked through the quiet streets, she suddenly felt something wrap around her wrist, a spiderweb. She quickly brushed it away, thinking it must have caught on to her when she left Ray's apartment. But for some reason, she felt uneasy. It felt like someone or something was watching her from the shadows. Remembering all the recent disappearances, she hurried home, unaware that something terrible awaited her.